Yeah, I first met Dave when I went to his gym to spar with Gavin McDonald. Gavin McDonald was fighting for the world title against Ray Vargas, who's a top Mexican fighter, and I was brought in as a sparring partner then. And I just watched Dave closely with Gab, saw how he worked with him and what he said, and I really liked him as a coach and as a person. He gave me a lot of good tips, and he's just a sound guy. So, I always looked at him on the TV. We were working with fighters and thought, he definitely knows his stuff, and I'd love to be trained by him. So I went to him and asked him to train me, and the rest is history. But yeah, signing with Matchroom, I think, was a bit more of a relief than adding pressure, because I know I knew that I was good enough to win big titles, and I always believed in myself to know I'd get to a certain level. But it was like no one else believed in me, so I didn't have the backing. So when I got signed with Matchroom, obviously I won the Commonwealth title, beat Ryan Doyle, who was a champion, and I beat him in good fashion as well. And that was sort of the turning point where, it won my first major title. Matchroom really took notice, and everybody in boxing sort of stood up and took notice then. So that was a big turning point. I think we got there on the Monday and the fight was on the Saturday. So yeah, it was strange. I think my fight was the first televised fight on Sky Sports since the start of the pandemic. So it was big moment for me. It was a pleasure to be asked. They wanted to open the show with a big fight. So it was a pleasure to open the show and have the first televised fight on Sky Sports after COVID. And it was a big fight for me because the fight that I had before that was a sort of comeback fight in Italy, and I didn't beat anyone of note, but it was a good win. But because it was in Italy, it didn't get much traction, and there wasn't many people watching. So, cut to come back and fight Reece Bellotti, who's quite a big name, was former Commonwealth champion, English champion, been there and done it, boxed some top fellas. And only lost on a split decision to Ryan Walsh, who's ranked top 5 in the world. It was a big moment. So I was pleased to come back with a big fight, and I knew that the world's eyes would be watching because everybody had been starved of live sport for so long, and it was it was a moment where I thought everyone's going to be watching. Probably my fight was probably one of the most competitive fights over the whole series of fight camps, not even just on the first night. So there was a lot of interest. I'd been there, been champion. He'd been there and been champion. It was a question of everyone deemed me as the boxer and the slick fighter, and deemed him as the massive puncher. So it gained a lot of interest, and I was glad to come away with a win. It was strange. It was a strange experience because every fight that you have, especially when you're in a big fight, you expect that noise there, and you expect the reaction from the crowd when you land these big shots. And a fight between me and Reece Bellotti normally with a crowd would be a big fight. He'd bring an army of fans. I'd bring a good few hundred from Chatteris, and it'd be a big occasion. But it sort of took that magic away, and it took that live feeling away, because when you're in there, because there's no noise and no sound, and it's just like stripped back completely, I felt like it was a bit more of a sparring contest. So it was a bit more like a spar. And then like after the fight, whereas normally you'd get your hand raised, you'd be winning, and the crowd would be going mental, and you'd be celebrating to the crowd or whatever. There was none of that. It was like my hand was raised, I won the fight, and it was the case of what happens now. Like usually Sky Sports would be in the ring interviewing you, or you'd be lifting your belt around, and there was none of that, and it was a bit surreal and a bit strange. But it's an experience, another positive experience in a bag, and it can only add to the experience I've already got. There's nothing in the pipeline at the moment. I know they're working on the shows for early next year. So since I've had COVID, it's sort of ruled me out for the rest of the year. I need to now. I'm stepping up to these big fights. I'm going to be in hard fights. Um, I need to make sure that every time I'm in the ring, I'm 100%. And I think I could probably rush and get close to 100% before the end of the year. But at this stage of my career, I don't need to, and I need to make sure that I'm 100% and right when I'm in the ring. So I think they're looking to make all the shows, put the schedules together for early next year, and I'll be ready to fight in January now. I'll be 100% ready to fight in January. And Christmas is cancelled this year, so we'll be looking for a big fight. They've mentioned a few names, world level names, people, former world champions like Kiko Martinez, who's numerous times he's won the European title. So that sort of level, European fringe world level, people that have boxed for world titles maybe just come up short, or former world champions that I'm ready to step in against and make a name for myself. I've like watching a lot of boxing, and over the years, there's been so many fights. Like I can't really put my finger on one person that I can say has inspired me. Growing up, I watched so much boxing, like people like Eric Morales, Barrera, Prince Nassim Hamed, Joe Kawasaki, Ricky Hatton, all these guys that was around when I was growing up, and you watch them, you was in awe of them, and it sort of inspires you and propels you on to think that's where I want to be. They're the fights that I want to be in. So all the superstars, really, people that I like to watch, people who use their brain in the ring, and like smart fighters, people like Terence Crawford. I'll look at him, and he's fighting one of Yorkshire's own, Kel Brook, in the next fight. So Kel's another inspiration for me. I first met him, I think, 2006, 2007, and followed his career ever since. But he's fighting Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford is a guy that you look at, especially now that he's come up to welterweight, and you look at him and you think he's not the fastest, he's not the most powerful, he's not the strongest, he's not the fittest, he's not the biggest or the longest, or he doesn't do anything like so much better than everybody else apart from his brain. He outthinks people and he outsmarts people, and he breaks people down using his mind. So they're the sort of guys that I like watching. People like him, people like Pernell Whitaker from the past, James Toney, great fighters because they've got, a unique style or unique way of thinking, a unique brain, and a superior brain in the ring. It means a lot to me. I think it's a really exciting. It's something that I really excited about, and something that I'm really looking forward to getting more involved with, especially after my career. 'Cause at the moment, obviously, I'm in Sheffield. A lot of the work that we're doing is all based in Finland, so I'm limited to what I can do personally. But after my career, I'm looking forward to working with the youth of Finland and everyone across the area to help build sports, help build relationships in that area, because I think our area is lacking a lot of what the big cities have. I know growing up personally, if you wanted to go to a cinema, you got to travel half an hour to get there. If you want to go to McDonald's, you got to travel half an hour to get there. It wasn't until I moved to Sheffield when I was sort of 17, 18 that I realised everything. I can walk to Meadowhall in 5 minutes, and everything's on your doorstep. And it's crazy for me because I've always lived in a sparse area where you can go up the park with your mates and mess about. Or when I was a bit older, they built like a basketball court and things like that. But there's not the amenities that you have in a city. And I think not that it's so much important, but I think that is lacking in our area. So I'm not saying we want to put in loads of facilities or anything, but I think if we can go in and get involved with kids and give them something to do rather than sitting around on a street corner or just staying at home playing Xbox or PlayStation. You know, get them active and get them thinking about different things and get them talking and communicating well. I think, always think, you know, whether you've got a million qualifications, you've got zero. I think if you can communicate well in life, then you're always going to find a way and you're always going to find a path. So, you know, that's one of the things that I'm big into, especially now these days. I think um, a lot of children lack in communication skills. When I was younger, kids were growing up spending too much time on the computer, spending too much time on a PlayStation, not interacting or going out as much as the generation before me did. And you know, a lot of parents, you know, I know it's hard times at the moment and people got to go out to work, but parents aren't spending the time with the kids, and it's having a chain reaction where the kids are lacking in a lot of areas. So, you know, if I can get out and make a bit of a difference, whether it's through boxing or not, physical activity or mental games and things like that, if I can get out and help kids communicate better, live more positive lives, more give them a bit more energy, maybe inspire them to do something, maybe make them make a choice whether they're not sure what to choose to go and study in the next key stage area. If I can help in any way, then it will be a success for me, whether it's one person or thousands of kids that we help. And I think on some of the taster sessions that we've already done, we've seen a really positive feedback, real positive you know, response, and it's something that brings a lot of joy to me personally, because I know how hard it is growing up in that area where there's not a lot of things for kids to do, and when you turn on the TV, you're looking at the Olympics, or you're looking at people on Sky Sports boxing or playing football, and there's nobody in my area that I know that will be playing for a professional football team or boxing on Sky Sports or in the Olympics, and it always feels like it's somebody else from somewhere else. And I'd like, for me, the kids turn on TV and watch me box, and they say, "I know that guy. He lives up the road. You know, he called into the corner shop, and you know, he got some milk from the fridge." And you know, like I want it to be. I want to build things in that area so that, you know, it doesn't feel out of reach for people if they know that I've gone and boxed on TV, I won this title, I've been Commonwealth champion, I've been top 10 in the world, then it feels achievable for them as well. Because I think people growing up in our area, they'll put brakes on themselves. Like I say, it feels like it's always somebody else from somewhere else. And I think a lot of the time, things in your wildest imaginations can feel unachievable when realistically it's not. You've just got to work. You might have to work harder than somebody from a city, but you know, if you work hard enough, it's achievable. I think in 5 years' time, I'll be 31 then, and I always said, yeah, I always said to myself, before my 32nd birthday, I want to be retired, because, you know, I turned pro very young. I've not got miles on the clock, but I'm not getting any younger, so I need to be in these big fights. That's why we're stepping up to world level now. So yeah, by the time, I mean, in 5 years' time, I'll be hopefully in the legacy fights. You know, people. Hopefully, I'll have won a world title, possibly unified, and I'll be in the sort of fights where I'm fighting a pound for pound fighters, or proving that I'm a pound for pound fighter, because, you know, them fights at the end of your career, that's for your legacy. And I think that's where I want to be in 5 years' time, and hopefully step away from boxing with all my faculties intact. I want to keep my brain good. I want to keep my eyes good. I want to keep my teeth, and hopefully make sure my nose don't get too much worse. I want two working hands that I can pick up pens and paper with, and I'll be looking forward to working with the kids across Finland in the foundation.